I have been saying that Hedera is one of the most undervalued projects in this space. What's even crazier is that, in 2025, HBAR is a completely different beast than what it was back in 2021. And a lot of people actually think that HBAR was an underperformer back in 2021, even though it did a 50x overall gain from the 2020 lows to the 2021 highs. And this time around, I actually think that HBAR has a lot more potential. And the reason why is because the supply is almost fully out there. And on top of that, the growth around the ecosystem and the expansion as well that has happened over just the last 7 months alone has been insane to watch. But today, most people are not looking at HBAR because they already experienced that nice little gain that we had from back in November to about roughly January. And you know what's crazy about that? Is that if we actually look at this gain, it wasn't bad at all. In fact, it was actually almost a 10x gain on HBAR from the lows of October to the highs of roughly December, January. But what if I told you that that was just a nice little, move in the market compared to where we were headed? Well, I personally believe that that is the case. I do think that HBAR is going to be one of the largest gainers this cycle, and I've mentioned many times over why, but let's actually go over a few things. Number one, let's talk about Kevin O'Leary, because Kevin O'Leary recently called HBAR the most undervalued asset in crypto. This was actually in a recent interview. Big shout out to Gilmore Estates for this. A strong vote of confidence from one of the industry's most respected investors. Is the market finally waking up to Hedera's potential? Now, I do remember that Kevin O'Leary also was shilling FTX, so we can't overlook that. But I gotta say, I do like the fact that HBAR is getting some nice recognition from individuals like Kevin O'Leary, because again, a lot of people actually look at and respect Kevin O'Leary outside of crypto, especially if you don't know about FTX. But I do agree with them. I do think that HBAR is definitely one of the most undervalued assets in crypto. I actually think that Hedera has been making so much noise, yet almost nobody actually has been listening, which I find shocking. Now, in terms of the interview, we have the interview here. Big shout out to Mark Chadwick X for this. We have huge Kevin O'Leary in recent interview. HBAR is going to be big. It is the most undervalued crypto by a long shot. Another huge endorsement from Mr. Wonderful. Anybody else agree with him? Check it out.
Earlier, Ethereum versus Solana. What's your pick today?
Solana.
Okay. Biggest mistake crypto founders make?
Lack of diversification.
I would agree with you on that one. Most underrated crypto project right now?
Oh, that's interesting. I would have to say, but I'm talking my book here. I think HBAR is going to be big. I really do.
HBAR, that's one in our portfolio as well, and we're very excited about
I own it, so I have to disclose that. But I think it's going to be big.
No, absolutely. I would agree with you on that one. Kevin.
Now, on top of that, this is not the first time that he talked about HBAR. In fact, he actually talked about it back in 2021 as well. But we have over here, I hold a big position in Hedera HBAR. This was at Consensus 2025. Check it out.
The majority of institutional capital waiting on the wings primarily is interested in Bitcoin. And if you ask a large institution after it's designated a commodity or a security, they're going to put on a 1.5% weighting, and they're going to start with Bitcoin. Now, what happens to the level twos and everything else? I mean, I'm a big shareholder in HBAR. I'm optimistic about the volatility. It's crazy at the price, but I own a bunch of positions, Avalanche, ETH, like everybody else. But that's just diversification. But really, I think what will happen when the regulatory environment is clear and we have designation to security over commodity, the volume of capital that will come into the top 5 tokens is going to be, it's going to be like a vortex sucking cash out of the crap at the bottom. The majority of it.
So yeah, I mean, listen, when we think about this space today, a lot of the conversations that we have been hearing is, Bitcoin this, Bitcoin that, or maybe it's some hyped up VC coin or meme coin, whatever the case may be. It's crazy because Hedera barely gets a lot of recognition. I love to see, like I said, Kevin O'Leary talking about it, because outside of Kevin O'Leary, there's not a lot of very prominent names addressing Hedera this way. Now, I do have to say, over the years, we've definitely heard from some big names outside of crypto talking about how great the tech behind Hedera is because they, either trialed it or they, know about the tech. But I don't think that we're at that point in time where almost everyone knows the Hedera name. But I do think that we will get there, especially considering the fact that we've heard from, prominent names from Hedera that, listen, Hedera wants to become a 100-year plus company. And I think that they're on that path. Now, on top of that, if we actually go over here, now I saw this recently. It's actually from Hedera is a Phoenix. This is Matthew Saneev. This is project manager, cloud and containers engineering at Costco Wholesale. And he actually was talking about Hedera. He was actually addressing how Hedera can run Ethereum smart contracts faster than Ethereum itself. With Chainlink, there is connectivity between networks. What's stopping millions, even billions of everyday transactions moving to Hedera? Every time an AI makes a decision, every time a payment is settled, every time data is verified, each of these is a transaction. These are not just financial exchanges. They are the core actions that power our digital world. On traditional systems or even older blockchains like Ethereum, high volumes of these transactions can lead to slow speeds. They can cause unpredictable costs and fees. They can create bottlenecks. That is a non-starter for enterprise scale. This is precisely where Hedera offers an advantage. It is built for scale, fixed low fees. That is why visionary companies like NVIDIA, Intel, and even Equity Lab are leveraging Hedera for verifiable compute. In AI, they are using Hedera's unique speed, finality, and ultra-low fees. Hedera builds quietly. It's the infrastructure for a future powered by verifiable, high-volume digital transactions. And this is exactly why, we have Kevin O'Leary holding a big position in Hedera. It's exactly why he believes that Hedera is one of the most undervalued cryptos by a long shot, because not a lot of people actually understand the tech behind Hedera on how scalable it actually is. First off, the fact that Hedera has unlimited scalability tied to it, along with ABFT security, those two things alone should get you extremely excited about the future for Hedera. But a lot of people actually don't even know about that because they barely look at the facts behind Hedera. But also when we look at the overall price action of HBAR, this is that nice run up from the lows of the beginning of November into the highs of January. We are just consolidating here after having that nice low back in April. And this whole area here is just consolidation. It's consolidation until we actually break over that trend line and clear these previous highs. We already have a nice little higher low scenario going on here. It might not be the best higher low, but if we actually look at the candle body closes, this is a nice higher low scenario, which means the price action right now is still in neutral territory until we clear these highs. The second that we make a higher high on HBAR, that's when we start to see bullish structure form yet again for HBAR, and we can flip immediately bullish on price action. The project itself is extremely bullish. I do think that Hedera right now is in a very unique position where we are starting to see regulations form around crypto. We're starting to see financial institutional players and enterprise companies also diving on in. And we got to remember that Hedera is one of those projects that have been really focused on by enterprise players and even institutional players as well, globally because of the tech stack. Like I said, that unlimited scalability plus the ABFT security mechanism behind it, that goes a long way in the world of enterprises and institutional clients. But the price action definitely is very interesting to me as well, because I do think that Hedera is close to breaking out of its overall downtrend, especially when we look at the HBAR Bitcoin pair, where we have this massive downtrend against Bitcoin, very similar to the downtrend back here into the October and November lows, right before we broke out against Bitcoin. The same scenario could be said right now, where we are in this massive downtrend and we already hit a nice demand zone here, and now we're just waiting for a big break to the upside over this upper trend line, where we could really look for bullish structure again, where we want to see higher highs, we want to see higher lows. It could take a little bit of time, but I suspect that this is going to be a violent move on the HBAR Bitcoin pair once we start to see that breakout really form. But also, even thinking about why Hedera is so undervalued right now, you got to remember that it's one of the top projects by dev activity as well. And this has been ongoing for about roughly 2-3 weeks now. We have over here from Chain Broker, top projects by development activity growth. Hedera is number 1 with 176%. this is compared to some of the top projects in this space. We're talking about IOTA, Injective, Near. I mean, guys, these are huge projects, even Centrifuge. I mean, they have massive amounts of growth behind them so far this cycle, and Hedera is outbeating all of them in terms of dev activity. That's because there is so much growth happening around Hedera, and I've talked about it, right? We recently just addressed all of the big moves happening in June alone. I mean, June was a huge month for Hedera, and this is showing us how active the team actually is. And by the way, the overall, social platform around Hedera is also growing substantially. I remember when Hedera was celebrating, 300,000 followers. That was just recently. That was back in like 2024, I think. They're almost at 445,000 followers already. And the DeFi side of Hedera is also starting to wake up in a big way. Again, we are in that nice downtrend, just like we were back here as well, leading into 2025. I do think that the TVL around Hedera is going to be, extremely bullish this cycle. I think that we outbeat our previous highs. And that was over like 200 plus million. In terms of DEX volume right now, DEX volume is down, but again, it's because of most of the market being down in a big way. I do think that we challenged the DEX volume as well here, which was almost close to 1 billion. And also just the volume around, stablecoins on Hedera is also starting to really pick up. We could see that down here as well. Stablecoin market cap, 126 million, up 11% in the last 7 days. This was sitting over 200 million recently. Again, I do think that we get back to those levels. Right now, most of the market is just cooking, right? Just brewing behind the scenes. And once everything is said and done, I think that the real winners are going to be showed. And the real winners that will be, showed to us are going to be the ones that have the ecosystem expansion that Hedera has, right? When you look at the ecosystem around the Web3 applications, the enterprise applications, even the wallets and custodians, like every single piece around Hedera just continues to expand. And I've watched this over the years, right? Like we've been a follower of Hedera's since going all the way back to 2021. People ask me all the time, why do you talk about Hedera? Are you getting paid by Hedera? Absolutely not. Listen, I am a big holder of HBAR. I will admit that. I'm not paid by anyone from Hedera. I don't have to talk about Hedera. I talk about Hedera because I've been following this project since 2021. And with all of the growth, with everything happening around Hedera since 2021, this tells me that HBAR is going to be a very, very big piece of the Web3 future. In fact, they are a big enabler of what's happening around Web3. And just like Kevin O'Leary is saying, yeah, I do think that Hedera is one of the most undervalued crypto projects in this space. Today, we have a fully diluted market cap of $8 billion. Okay, just take a quick look at the top 15 projects in this space. Okay, when we're looking at the top 15 projects in this space, I would argue that HBAR should be at least in the top 10. I do think that by the end of the cycle, it could easily be in the top 5. We're right now at a fully diluted value of $8 billion. Just to get into the top, 10, you need $20+ billion in market cap. To get into the top 5, you need $93 billion in market cap. That is a 10x from here at $1.60. And I don't think that I need to tell you guys that guess what? BNB is barely scratching the surface of where it will be towards the end of the cycle. Right now, if we look at the all-time chart, yeah, it already broke its all-time highs. It recently hit $793, but I don't think that that is the top for BNB. I think a lot of these market caps that we're seeing today around this space are going to be significantly higher. You got to think about it like this. Ethereum, to get back to its all-time highs, you're talking about over $600+ billion in market cap. I do think that HBAR could easily 10x from here to hit a fully diluted value of 80 billion. And I still think that it has a lot more room to grow from that point on. Again, HBAR is a very undervalued project. You got to focus on what's happening around Hedera. Focus on the dev activity. This will lead to even more expansion of the ecosystem. And I'm looking forward to seeing more and more updates from the Hedera team because I do think that this is probably one of the most active projects in this space. And that should not go unnoticed. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys definitely leave a like, subscribe, set notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.